Buenas tardes. Very good to see you all. Thanks so much for joining us here today. It's really wonderful having an opportunity to see so many friends from across our hemisphere together virtually, and we also look forward to the opportunities to get together in person. There is no region that the United States is more profoundly or personally connected to than the Americas. We have a hemisphere that's forever linked by common language and geography, by incredibly close bonds of family and community, and by a shared focus on advancing democracy so that we can deliver for our people. When President Biden announced the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity at the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles last June, he did so recognizing that the countries in our region are stronger and better prepared to seize opportunities for our people when we work together. And I think we all recognize that our cooperation is more important than ever as we face in our hemisphere serious challenges from COVID-19 and its economic consequences to high food and energy prices exacerbated by President Putin's war of aggression in Ukraine, to enduring problems like a lack of broad-based economic opportunity, corruption, chronic insecurity. Citizens in all of our countries across the region are looking for their governments to address these shared challenges, to deliver results, so that they're free to pursue a future that is full of opportunity and hopefully prosperity. Today, we are excited to officially launch an ambitious, high standards initiative that will help us do just that. And let me say here, the Americas Partnership is just that, a partnership. Our governments have been in constant dialogue to shape the agenda. We're also consulting closely with civil society, with labor, environmental groups, the private sector, and we're committed to bringing historically underrepresented groups to the table as well. The Americas Partnership will accelerate our shared work to strengthen supply chains and to make them more resilient to future shocks so that the goods and products that our populations rely on are affordable and available, and workers' rights are respected in the doing. It will deepen our cooperation on the clean energy transition, conservation, climate resilience, helping us share technologies and best practices, and boost public and private investment, all while creating good-paying jobs. It will reinvigorate and reform our regional economic institutions like the Inter-American Development Bank and deploy new financing tools to mobilize more investment and focus on priorities like the climate crisis, inclusive opportunity, private sector development. The partnership will boost our longstanding trade and commercial ties and work to bring the benefits of sustainable, inclusive, responsible trade to all of our people, which Ambassador Tai will speak more about in just a moment. Finally, it will help update what President Biden calls the basic bargain, what our citizens expect from their governments. The Americas Partnership will explore how all of us can support public investments and innovations that make life better and fairer for our communities, creating opportunities for workers to earn a decent wage, for children to get a good education, for women to enter or return to the workforce. We'll continue to adapt the agenda based on the needs of our populations, changing circumstances in our region and the world, and the voices of the countries here. And let me emphasize that the door to this partnership will remain open to any country that is willing to uphold our high standards and work toward our shared goals. This dialogue marshals the strength, the ingenuity, the diversity of an incredibly dynamic region. We're 90% of the Western Hemisphere's GDP, nearly 2/3 of its population. And as President Biden has said, there is nothing we cannot do together. So we're very much looking forward to hearing from everyone today, but not just today, in the months ahead, about how we can make real our shared vision of the Americas Partnership. Our people are looking to us to deliver, and I'm confident that together we can honor their trust. With that said, let me turn it over to Ambassador Tai. Katherine.
Thank you so much, Secretary Blinken, and I'm glad to see all of you as we advance the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity. Thank you so much for joining us today. President Biden summed up the goal of this initiative when he announced it during the Summit of the Americas last June, to respond to basic human desires that we share for dignity, for safety, and for security. The traditional way of doing trade gave us cheap goods and more production, but at the same time, it also contributed to growing inequality, sprawling and vulnerable supply chains, and workers and communities being displaced and left behind. Under the president's leadership, this administration has been writing a new story on trade, one that addresses today's pressing issues that directly impact everyday people to deliver real opportunities for workers and communities and advance our global priorities, like tackling the climate crisis and building resilient supply chains. The Americas Partnership is a part of our pursuit of a worker-centered trade policy. It will be a new type of economic arrangement anchored on cooperation to build our economies from the bottom up and from the middle out. This will be a historic agreement with one of the most dynamic economic regions in the world. The Western Hemisphere accounts for almost 32% of global GDP, and the United States' ties with the region are broad and deep. We have some of our most longstanding trade agreements in this region, like our agreements with Chile, Colombia, and Peru. We also have some of our newest, like the renegotiated US-Mexico-Canada agreement and the Protocol on Trade Rules and Transparency with Ecuador. We are committed to working with our partners to fully implement these existing agreements. And at the same time, we recognize that we need new tools to address new problems that will shape the coming decades, to better integrate our economies, reinforce our regional ties, and ensure that the benefits of trade are shared by all our citizens. And that is exactly what we intend to do through the partnership. I'm very pleased with the joint declaration we're releasing today. It's ambitious and reflects our shared priorities. And that includes empowering our workers and eradicating forced labor, strengthening our supply chains to be more resilient against unexpected shocks, growing our economies, fostering innovation in both the public and private sectors, and tackling the climate crisis by growing climate-related industries and creating good-paying jobs throughout our region. This is truly a partnership, as Secretary Blinken said, not only among the governments represented here, but also with our relevant stakeholders, including civil society, labor, the private sector, and our Congress. In my role as the U.S. Trade Representative, I've made it a priority to meet with manufacturers, farmers, producers, and fishers as much as I can, to hear directly from them and to incorporate their priorities in our policies. The same principle applies to this initiative. The Americas Partnership will be a tool to bring more voices to the table, to ensure that people who have been traditionally left out of the conversation, like women entrepreneurs, indigenous peoples, and other underrepresented groups, can help shape this new chapter in our collective story on trade. Our approach with this partnership will reflect these values to make a future that is more resilient, more sustainable, and more inclusive, and to create new opportunities for all our communities. I look forward to working with Secretary Blinken and all of you as we begin this exciting opportunity. Thank you again for coming along with us, and I'll now turn it back over to Secretary Blinken.
Katherine, thank you very much. And to all our colleagues, again, it's wonderful to have everyone with us today. And let's go around and hear from colleagues, starting with our colleague from Barbados. So, Minister Symmonds, Kerrie, the floor is yours.
Secretary of State and Trade Representative, colleague ministers from Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Mexico, Panama, Peru, and Uruguay, and other distinguished guests. First of all, let me thank you for the opportunity to be here. I want to give you the assurance that Barbados considers this to be a Barbados considers this to be a worthwhile and ambitious initiative by the government of the United States of America, aimed at enhancing economic cooperation to drive inclusive economic recovery and growth in the hemisphere. And so therefore, on behalf of the government of Barbados, I want to extend the appreciation to the government of the United States for inviting Barbados to be a founder member of the Americas Partnership, And I want to stress that I note with great interest the promise of the creation of a secure middle class and democratic region through building from the bottom up and the middle out. This approach resonates very strongly with Barbados's own vision for tackling the challenges that we are confronting with respect to economic prosperity, not only here, but in the region. I should say now that I mentioned the word region that while we obviously salute this initiative, we must at the outset emphasize and underscore the context within which Barbados will be able to participate. As you would be aware, we are a member of the Caribbean community and the single market and economy. And we are actually the country in the CSME, the Caribbean Single Market and Economy, which has the lead responsibility for regional integration. As such, it would be almost impossible for us to just go forward on a frolic of our own, but rather we have to be at the table, ever mindful of the role and responsibilities that we have with respect to our colleague states within CARICOM. And in that regard, we would have wished to just signal at the beginning our desire to have the CARICOM Secretary General and or her representatives partner with us as we continue to have these discussions. For its part, CARICOM stands ready to support the process and will work with any and all of the member states in order to achieve a mutually satisfactory outcome. I want to say that, like many of our neighbors in the Caribbean and the wider hemisphere, we have been hard hit by a number of unprecedented issues. You have mentioned some already, Secretary of State, overlapping health, climate, cost of living crises. All of these have exacerbated the levels of indebtedness for most, if not all of us within this region. And they continue to threaten us. In addition to that, we are confounded by issues of energy and food security, especially here in the CARICOM countries. The aim of the Americas Partnership to bring our hemisphere closer together in response to these challenges through a number of measures elaborated on the basis of a humane approach to economic policy is very closely aligned with my government's policy agenda and our manifesto. In this regard, the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Motley, has placed emphasis both domestically and internationally on pursuing a just and green transition that allows us to build resilience against climate crisis in all areas and creates a new, clean, green jobs environment, improving the lives of our people and improving access to the global trading system. So as such, Barbados hails the Americas Partnership as a much needed development for revitalizing and reimagining the trade relationship between the United States and the Caribbean community. I would want to urge Madam Trade Representative that this is an area that we should pay close attention to because frankly, the relationship between ourselves and yours with regard to trade has been in something of a vegetative state for far too long. And I see this partnership as having the potential for providing a solid platform for expanding and enhancing the trade agreement which we now have, which is the Caribbean Basin Initiative. And this could also be an opportunity for the injection of new blood, not only through the Caribbean Basin Initiative, but through its instruments, which would be the Caribbean Basin Economic Recovery Act and the U.S. Caribbean Basin Trade Partnership Act. Barbados also feels very strongly that the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity builds upon the momentum of the U.S. Caribbean Partnership to address the climate crisis of 2030. This effort was launched last year at the 9th Summit of the Americas, which establishes a framework to support climate adaptation and strengthen energy security, while of course building the resilience of critical infrastructure and local economies to the climate crisis that we face. We feel that the partnership also can be leveraged in order to ensure that instruments of multilateral financial institutions in the region are able to address the challenges of climate crisis through mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. And all of that brings me to the point of the Bridgetown Initiative, which again dovetails very nicely with these ambitions. As you know, the Bridgetown Initiative is setting out a comprehensive plan for transforming the global financial architecture in order to tackle the climate crisis. But it also and equally importantly, calls on multilateral development banks to implement the capital adequacy framework reforms recommended by the G20 expert panel in order to expand the lending to governments by $1 trillion through the use of innovative financial instruments in order to finance climate adaptation and also to build resilience. So we consider it to be imperative that all of our hemispheric partners gathered here today in support of the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity continue to bear in mind and to support the need for reform of the multilateral financial institutions by endorsing these reforms, especially at the upcoming World Bank Group and International Monetary Fund spring meetings. I want to say finally, Secretary, that Barbados considers the partnership to be an ambitious but relevant initiative, which has the potential to harness the hemisphere's resources in order to implement critical reforms and programs aimed at addressing the numerous challenges which we face at this time and can help us build very resilient economies. We look forward to elaboration on the inclusive joint declaration which we have adopted and to the expansion of this partnership to our Caribbean community and to the rest of our hemisphere so that it can realize its promised goal to deliver hemispheric recovery, resilience, and stability across the entirety of the Americas. I want to thank you.
Kerrie, thank you very, very much. Let's turn now to Canada to Minister Ng. Mary, over to you.
Hi there, Tony and Catherine, and to my many friends and ministerial colleagues from across the Americas. It's really terrific to be here today on behalf of Canada and at the launch of the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity. APEP represents a unique opportunity for all of our countries to come together to advance our mutual interests and our region's economic prosperity. The events of the last few years have had disruptive impacts on our economies and on global trade, first with the COVID-19 pandemic, and more recently with Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Supply chains have been stressed, energy prices have increased, and food security concerns have exacerbated. And it's because of these challenges now is precisely the right time to be doing more together. As friends and as partners in the same hemisphere, APEP is that vehicle to do exactly that. It will help us deliver tangible benefits that will promote inclusive prosperity and sustainable development in our region. Its bold ideas and clear calls to action to advance and deepen our shared vision for democracy, for development and prosperity is why Canada is very pleased to support this initiative and to work together with all of you to help all of us advance our economies in ways that encourages human rights, economic development, transparent governance, and eradicates forced labor. With its focus on inclusive trade, on multilateral investment, and on anti-corruption measures, the declaration will strengthen the diversity, the sustainability, and the resilience of our supply chains by expanding regional ties, trade ties, especially those related to the flow of critical minerals, to food, to clean energy, to vaccines. And in particular, we're pleased with the joint declaration that recognizes the importance of eliminating poverty, reducing inequality, and distributing the benefits of our growth far and wide, especially to the middle and to the working classes. Importantly, it will help reduce systemic barriers to keep women, young people, micro small business owners, racialized entrepreneurs, indigenous entrepreneurs who have traditionally been underrepresented in global trade from participating in our shared economic recovery. These goals align very well with Canada's trade diversification strategy. And I know that Canada isn't alone in our conviction that we must first and foremost ensure the well-being of our people. That means protecting and improving access to education, to health and nutrition, to social safeguards and public infrastructure. It also means creating good jobs and protecting our environment and our world for future generations. It is here again that this partnership's commitment for an ambitious agenda of sustainable economic growth and hemispheric resilience is the right way forward. Because when one of us succeeds, we all succeed. It's why Canada believes it's imperative that we work together to make our economies more inclusive, more sustainable, and to position us to benefit so that all of our people now and in the future will indeed contribute to our collective economies. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Mary, thank you very much. And let's go now to Chile. Minister Urrejola, Antonia, good to see you. but not yet to hear you. There we go.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm going to speak in Spanish. Bueno, buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. My special greetings to Secretary Blinken and Ambassador Katherine Tai, and of course to all of the foreign ministers, friends, as well as my Minister of Trade friends. On behalf of Chile, I am very pleased to be able to take part in this launch of an initiative that seeks better economic cooperation in the region. Also, because this is a very special year for Chile. This year, we're celebrating 200 years of diplomatic relations with the United States and 20 years since the signing of our free trade agreement. I wanted to extend special thanks to Secretary Blinken on this occasion. For Chile, this partnership will strengthen regional economic cooperation and help us to move forward together, as you have all said before, as we tackle the challenges for growth that the region faces. This is a very comprehensive, and as this partnership shows, it emphasizes the importance of tying growth to human development, especially to those neglected communities, as well as vulnerable groups like women, those who have not have access to economy. It also has sustainability at its heart as being important for the future of economies and biodiversity. As signatories, all of the member states share certain values. For example, in terms of production chains, value chains, responsible business, public policies that have a human rights and gender perspective, protection of the environment, and joint work with communities. This initiative shows us that as a region, we can work together and have an impact on commerce so that we can have a constructive platform where each country can make its contributions. This partnership was announced in conjunction with the recent Summit of the Americas, and that shows the importance of cooperation in the hemisphere to improve the quality of life and economic prosperity for all in the hemisphere. For Chile, it is important for the work that we do here on out, help conditions for post-pandemic recovery. In the coming months, we will be responsible for negotiating the implementation of this agreement. I believe that we will be able to achieve the objectives we've set out. In the coming months, we will have to understand what our ambitions are in the framework of this partnership. Chile suggests capacity building so that we can be in line with international standards. We should be promoting free trade agreements and standardization globally. We can look at social policies, the most important agreements having to do with human rights, children's rights, the environment, among others. It is important to advance, and this initiative can lead to specific actions in terms of the digital economy to promote transformative economies and the development of regional value chains to achieve prosperity. I therefore reiterate Chile's intent to work actively to ensure that there are new perspectives for economic and regional economic integration. And as we heard from the Minister of Barbados, we would like to call on all of us to include more countries of the region in this initiative. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Antonia. Thank you very much. We turn now to Colombia. I think we have Minister Umaña, and Minister Velasco.
Thank you. Señor Antony Blinken, Secretario de Estado de Estados
Secretary
Unidos.
Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, Ambassador Katherine Tai, U.S. Trade Representative, ministers of today's participating governments, We would like to thank the U.S. government for the kind invitation to the launch of the joint statement of the America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity. For the Colombian government, the commitment to working together at the hemispheric level for regional integration through innovative initiatives that are specific and strategic will lead to progress for our people. Without a doubt, this is a key moment to close the gaps of inequality throughout the continent. In the post-pandemic context, there are global conflicts that have affected the energy and food sovereignty of the world, and these are challenges that we must tackle together, such as protecting the environment, given the imminent climate crisis and global warming. This situation has led to higher inflation worldwide, leading to lower purchasing power for citizens, vulnerability in our supply chains, crisis in sovereign debt, and a slowing down of economic growth in most countries in the hemisphere compared to the previous year. And it is in the midst of all of these challenges that in Colombia, we are convinced in the ability to adapt and to become more resilient throughout the Americas. And we are convinced that changes are needed, as is greater integration in the hemisphere. We must be more efficient with our resources. We must build value chains at the regional level and ensure that trade is fair and balanced throughout the hemisphere. This initiative that we are launching today is an opportunity to work together and to create the prosperity that our peoples deserve. Some of them have been forgotten for a very long time. Therefore, the commitments of this alliance will allow us to recover our economic possibilities to serve region, our momentum. This is a day to work on an inclusive, sustainable economy, one that takes into consideration the environment and our biodiversity, that ensures greater care for and participation of our communities, and of course, greater balance when it comes to trade conditions worldwide, leading to greater production. Thank you very much, everyone. I give the rest of my time to my colleague, the Minister of Housing, City and Territory, Catalina Velasco. Welcome. Thank you very much, Minister Umaña. Our actions must be respectful of the environment, of our biodiversity. They must ensure greater participation and care for our communities. We must care for our natural resources such as the Amazon, our mountains, our sources of water, and the biodiversity that are our wealth. We must protect these as a region through sustainable development. Public and private investment must provide value to vulnerable communities who have historically been affected by violence, geographic isolation, and absence of the state. In this context, President Gustavo Petro has called these regions of deep Colombia. And we know that in order to achieve peace, we must create economic and social opportunities. We celebrate the fact that this initiative has been emphatic and taken into consideration historically forgotten populations such as our indigenous populations, women, Afro-descendants, young people, the LGBT community, senior citizens, people with disabilities, and rural communities. Without including these populations in all of our processes in society, it is impossible to make decisions regarding peace and equality, which is the goal of all of our countries. In developing this initiative, we will emphasize priorities such as access to drinking water, basic health services, housing, infrastructure, and clean energy, as well as the energy transition. Therefore, this initiative brings us together to seek sustainable, stable development. We seek stronger economies in the region, and this will allow us to better tackle the problems we face, offer opportunities, and diminish the level of irregular migration. Colombia will continue to work with everyone so that the hemisphere is increasingly stable, inclusive, resilient, sustainable, and integrated. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Let us go now to Costa Rica. I see Minister Andre, Minister Tovar. Arnaldo, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Gracias, Su Excelencia, Secretario de Estado.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary of State of the United States, Antony Blinken, Your Excellency, Ambassador Katherine Tai, U.S. Trade Representative, Excellencies, Ministers of the countries of the Alliance, ladies and gentlemen. Costa Rica would like to enthusiastically receive this initiative of President Biden and the government of the United States. It seeks with 11 partners greater and more significant regional integration to seek social and economic prosperity for all. The links between our countries via a mechanism that facilitates cooperation and the flow of investment for development and that allows for exchanging best practices is a good platform to promote democracy as well, respect for the rule of law, recognition of human dignity, and the protection of our institutions and our freedoms. From early on in our history, Costa Rica became a part of the commitment to create a robust democratic state that respects the rule of law, that is a lover of peace and democracy, taking into consideration the health and education of its people as a priority. To us, this is the right time to celebrate the joining together of these values with other countries. Today, the world confronts multiple challenges, and there are huge questions and uncertainties when we think about the future. Economic uncertainty post-pandemic, the consequences of climate change, and the increase in migration, just to mention a few, are leading to great tension in our societies. We must act expeditiously. We must conduct specific actions to improve the quality of life of our people. We must look at specific areas so that we can make a difference working together, and we must make the most of our assets and the great number of efforts underway so that we may strengthen our societies and our economies. When it comes to the opportunities that our region offers, you can count on Costa Rica to promote this initiative based on the pillars of democracy, economic development, and with a human-centered focus so that human beings are at the center of all decisions. I will give the floor now to the Minister of Foreign Trade, Mr. Manuel Tovar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone, Mr. Secretary, Antony Blinken, and Ambassador Katherine Tai. Picking up on Minister André Tinoco's remarks, I would like to express that Costa Rica supports an ambitious yet practical agenda that will render results both in the short term and in the years to come. Costa Rica has free trade agreements with all the APEC partners but one, and we need to take better advantage of this platform and work together in securing more efficient and resilient supply chains. The region has to be competitive to be a good alternative to other distant markets. Therefore, we see great opportunities and potential in streamlining the export-import process, improving customs infrastructure, digitalization of processes, and simplifying permits and registrations. We should aim to common standards and regulations, making it simpler to produce in multiple countries and facilitating multi-sourcing between our countries. Eventually, we must take a look to the multiple free trade agreements and make them more efficient and compatible with accumulation and common rules of origin. We see room for a wide range of trade facilitation initiatives, improving infrastructure and shipping cargo throughout the region. The United States has worked closely with Canada and Mexico in improving the flow of goods amongst their borders. We hope that this can serve as a reference for all members of APIP, so we can all aspire to find ways for improvements in common borders and ports and airports. Throughout this process, we see an important role of the private sector. They can offer important feedback regarding the strengths and needs of each one of our countries. We hope that in our discussions, we will consider their advice and knowledge. Finally, it is important to show that APIP can deliver outcomes for the region through more trade, but also through more investment and security in our supply chains. I want to close by recognizing President Biden's leadership and vision with the proposal of this APIP initiative. May this be a start of a very fruitful and long-standing partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both very, very much. Let's go now, please, to the Dominican Republic. I see Minister Alvarez, Minister Bisonó. Roberto, over to you.
Distinguidos colegas, buenas tardes.
Distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. Secretary Blinken.
Thank you for hosting this timely and important event. Given the fact that the U.S. is the world's largest economy and by far our most important trading partner, its leadership inspires us into action. COVID-19, supply chain disruptions, climate change, global inflationary pressures, the volatility of the prices of commodities, migratory flows, the invasion of Ukraine, and others have taken and continue to take a heavy toll in the lives of our countries. But these events also present an enormous opportunity. They have raised the curtain to a brave new world of challenges and possibilities that require vision and action. That's what we're here to do, carpe diem. The scope of the challenges and opportunities are of such a scale that the only way to rise to the call is to create a collective synergy that is unique and effective. The Dominican Republic has been proactive in speech and in deed on the urgent need to combine efforts in order to give our region a historic turn that capitalizes on the opportunities at hand through a multilateral strategy that unites efforts and builds bridges amongst our countries, peoples, and resources. We belong to a unique region, a hemisphere of abundant resources and peace. Let us make the Americas the brightest example of prosperity and hope for all of our peoples. Le paso la palabra al ministro Bisonó.
I will now give the floor to Minister Bisonó. Thank you very much, Foreign Minister Alvarez. Honorable Secretary Blinken, distinguished Representative Tai, thank you for the invitation to this important launch. Likewise, I would like to extend my greetings to the honorable ministers of the region joining us today. Social stability, economic and political stability that characterized the Dominican Republic and made it more competitive in the global market and has led to increased trade and trade that continues to increase over time. In this context, the partnership being launched today will help to deepen our economic policies towards integration that we embarked on several decades ago and as part of our national 2030 development strategy that is being spearheaded by our president. Specifically, we recognize the strategic advantage to work with geographically and economically close partners. We can hasten the incorporation of our goods into regional value chains and in making the most of nearshoring opportunities in the Americas, as we have already been doing as part of the Alliance for Democratic Development and Progress. The Dominican Republic aims to be part of all global value chains, and as part of this desire, we will move forward based on the good political will being displayed here. improving development for all partners, respecting the rules of trade, and fulfilling the commitments of our existing trade agreements, for example, DR-CAFTA. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Thank you both very, very much. To Ecuador now, I see Minister Holguín, Minister Prado. Juan Carlos, the floor is yours.
Gracias, estimado secretario.
Thank you very much, esteemed Secretary Blinken, Ambassador Tai, distinguished colleagues from the continent. Ecuador very much supports this America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity as a tool for promoting economic integration, cooperation, investment in the face of the challenges and impacts we're feeling. For example, as a result of COVID and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we're committed to seeking sustainable development, economic, socially, and environmentally speaking. I also wanted to note that the actions that need to be taken on infrastructure in our countries is going to be a vital part of this partnership. We also see criminal activities that make it difficult to achieve development, and this has an impact on security, the safety, and the prosperity of our peoples. It is important to work together to fight against this scourge. Ecuador believes that this America's partnership will help those countries that do not have a free trade agreement in place to increase our trade. This will help us. For example, in broccoli, if there are no tariffs for us sending them to the United States, this will help our indigenous peoples here and will help to curb the flow of migrants from Ecuador who arrive at the border of the United States. We believe we will all benefit. In this America's partnership with Panama, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, we are already doing this. The agreement takes into account some of the concerns we have in the region about inequality and does so at the same time seeking to protect vulnerable communities, for example, indigenous in Ecuador. We thank the United States for this initiative. We are committed to it. And as Secretary Blinken said, this is a partnership of all of us and for all of us. And I will now give the floor to Minister Julio Prado.
Following on what was mentioned by our Minister of Foreign Affairs, for the government of Ecuador, it's highly important to participate in this regional initiative, and we are glad that we're finally arriving to this stage with the joint declaration that allows us to be part of a new vision for cooperation and trade that adheres to sustainability and to the inclusion of new and more relevant stakeholders. Today, we're all together here to seek the common objective of bringing economic prosperity to the region. Ecuador is aware that in order to promote and strengthen its trade relations around the world and the region specifically, trade expansion and trade growth should not be the end in itself. We need to put the needs of our citizens first. They are the essence of our discussion. Therefore, the respect of worker rights, the protection of the environment, the inclusion of vulnerable and historically underrepresented groups, as well as the governance guided by democratic principles, will always need to be the building blocks of the commitments that we are doing today. As the sign of the commitment of Ecuador with this new regional vision, we would like to highlight the work that the country has been doing to upgrade and improve the traditional and non-traditional features related to trade. Consequently, I would like to mention the modernization of our current trade agreements and treaties, as well as the negotiations of several others with really high standards for recognizing labor, environmental rights, and in general, expanding the benefits that trade can produce to all the society. A clear and palpable example of what cooperation can achieve, we can mention the protocol of trade and investments that was signed between Ecuador and the United States, which is in force since 2021. This protocol represents substantial improvements in topics related to trade facilitation and good regulatory practices, and also in topics related to anti-corruption and promotion of SMEs. So the declaration of the American Partnerships for Economic Prosperity constitutes an opportunity for constructive and pragmatic dialogue. Ecuador is willing to continue this high-level partnership that will benefit our people, both in Ecuador and all the region. Ecuador today commits to joint efforts with the countries of the hemisphere to carry out actions that will lead to sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you both very much. We go now to Mexico. We have Minister Ebrard, Minister Buenrostro. Marcelo.
Hi, Anthony. Mucho gusto saludarte.
Hi, Anthony. It's a pleasure to greet you, Ambassador Tai, as well as our colleagues with us today. If you'll allow me to make a brief comment, I think we should be very, very pleased with this initiative that today we are all putting forth, but especially I would like to acknowledge the interest of President Biden and Secretary Blinken to call for the America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity. It had been many years. For many years, we had not had this kind of possibility. And for Latin America and the Caribbean, this is a great sign that we would like to acknowledge. I'd like to acknowledge you, Anthony, and thank you and President Biden for this invitation. The goal of this partnership is that we all share a reality and the will to improve our economies, promote well-being and prosperity throughout the Americas. That is the top priority for Mexico, for the U.S., and for all of the countries I've heard speak this morning. This is great news, and I would like to highlight that Mexico takes this very seriously, and we will work intensively so that it delivers for our peoples a partnership for economic prosperity in the Americas that will lead to well-being. You can count on Mexico, and once again, thank you very much. I would like to especially thank President Biden and Secretary Blinken. I will give the floor to Raquel Buenrostro, the Minister of the Economy of Mexico. Raquel, go ahead, please. Thank you very much, Secretary Blinken and U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai. It is a pleasure to greet all of the ministers of the country who are part of this partnership, the America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity. We'd like to say that for the Mexican government, it is a priority to work together with countries in the hemisphere and work on economic development in the region. We are convinced that this is of crucial importance. We must consider all underrepresented communities so that any development we achieve is universal and so that we close these social gaps that affect us so greatly currently. One of the themes of this administration has been for the good of all and the poorest first. We must come to agreements that benefit us all equally, because we cannot achieve regional development when some members of society are not receiving the benefits of economic cooperation. Therefore, we must make the most of the current international situation and make progress when it comes to integrating all countries in the Americas and make the most of the challenges that have come up over the last few years. We must achieve cooperation when it comes to the holistic development of our peoples. However, we cannot overlook the debt we have to our planet and to future generations. We believe, therefore, that it is important that we find solutions in areas that are increasingly relevant, such as protecting the environment and biodiversity, the inclusion of underrepresented groups in our economies, and eliminating discrimination in any of its forms. We must work together for economic development that is increasingly more humane. Another extremely important issue for the region is undoubtedly strengthening supply chains in strategic industries. And even though many believe that this is an extreme challenge, we are sure that the region has the material resources it needs, and especially the human resources it needs to make progress on this important task. To do this, we need the support and the cooperation, and especially the commitment of everyone, so that we can say in the near future that we have achieved regional development that benefits everyone, where no one is left behind. We must highlight that an important issue for the Secretariat of the Economy is to distribute the benefits of trade. These must be more inclusive. We must prioritize underrepresented communities such as women, young people, indigenous populations, and others. We always must consider the interests of workers and SMEs. No one should be left behind and no one should be left out. With the beginning of this mechanism, we will seek to promote better flows of investment in the hemisphere to promote economic growth. And we are sure that we will achieve growth in the region's economies through actions that decrease inequalities in societies in the hemisphere. We will support the most vulnerable and promote creating well-paid jobs. This administration has a genuine concern for economic development that is increasingly humane. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Thank you both very, very much. We go now to Panama, and we have Minister Tewaney, we have Mr. Alfaro. Janaina, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Su Excelencia Antony Blinken, Embajadora.
Thank you, Honorable Antony Blinken, Ambassador Tai, colleagues, ministers. For Panama, it is an honor and a great opportunity to all be here, to work together and join forces with our most important and strategic and longstanding partners in the hemisphere. Our foreign policy strategy is very much aligned to these trade issues, and as a country that creates consensus in the region, we will continue to work together and create synergies for cooperation with our closest allies. With our initiative and participation for progress for people and sustainable development, Panama today commits, as all countries here have, it commits to dialogue and to diplomacy as the most important mechanism that exists to solve crises, but also as the most valuable mechanism for cooperation and development in the region. I would like to introduce then Federico Alfaro Boyd, the Minister of Commerce and Industry of Panama, who will share with you the vision of President Laurentino Cortizo when it comes to our strategy for development in our country and economic recovery for the hemisphere. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. My warm greetings to all of my colleagues in the region, Secretary Blinken, Ambassador Tai. It's an honor and a pleasure to see you again.
For this opportunity. New trends are reconfiguring global value chains and shortening supply chains in search of better costs, less risk, and greater agility. Companies have a greater interest in guaranteeing the supply of their products, as well as minimizing environmental impact and reducing their carbon footprint. As a major international transportation hub, Panama has played and will continue to play an integral role in providing sustainable solutions. This realignment of supply chain priorities creates tremendous opportunities for Latin America, with a view to have greater integration and participation in the global flows of goods and services. Panama, as a major logistics hub in the region, is leading decisively. The government of President Laurentino Cortizo Cohen is focused on identifying activities that reinforce the production chain process and add more value to our exports. This translates into less risk in terms of the volatility of international prices of raw materials and goods. In this sense, we see nearshoring as a solution to generate more opportunities to create added value. For these reasons, Panama is actively participating in regional initiatives such as the ADD and now the American Partnership APEP. We see our country delivering an enticing offer to attract investment in the logistics sector, where we already have comparative and competitive advantages, specifically related to the manufacture of pharmaceutical products and medical devices, as well as semiconductors. Panama appreciates the support of the United States in emphasizing the need to analyze how countries are adapting to better support nearshoring capabilities, rather than simply relying on the more limited role that countries have played in the past. By assuming a forward-thinking approach to nearshoring, we can incentivize new opportunities that will contribute to building a more resilient and dependable supply chain that aligns perfectly with Panama's efforts to diversify its exports beyond the service industry. Put simply, we are a regional catalyst for growth. Panama's logistic platform supports the warehousing distribution of components manufactured by our partners at APEP. As we develop our own manufacturing capabilities, we are leveraging these unique strengths to promote economic development and regional security. With our partners in the region, we will deepen our economic cooperation, shaping new tools for the challenges that we face today and that we will face in the future. We will strengthen our supply chains to make them more resilient, to better manage unexpected crises. We will foster innovation in both the public and private sectors so that governments can better address and preempt society's most pressing challenges, and companies can improve their productivity while we work together to responsibly address the challenge posed by climate change. We are one of the 3 only carbon negative countries in the world. We are committed with the protection of our oceans and our most sacred forests and jungles, such as the Darien forest. Finally, I want to re-emphasize the words from Ambassador Tai regarding the importance of refocusing our trade agreements to attend the ever-changing needs of our productive sectors. We look forward to working with the United States and our partners in this regard, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you both very, very much. We turn now to our colleague from Peru, and let me give you the floor, Minister Gervasi.
Thank you very much, Secretary Blinken, Ambassador Tai. This is a very challenging international context for us. The countries of the region are still facing the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this has had an impact on our value chains. We have Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We've seen increases in fuel prices, oil prices. In this scenario, it is important to work multilaterally, as we are aware that the challenges are shared. In working together, we can ensure prosperity for the region. It is important, therefore, to have different partners. There are spaces for convergence. We must, however, work sustainably. In Peru, we have 22 free trade agreements in place. Some of them are plurilateral, like the Andean Agreement. We have the Mercosur, Chile, Mexico, the United States, Canada, Singapore, Korea, Japan, the European Union, Costa Rica, Venezuela, the Pacific Alliance, and we will be taken over as President pro tempore this month. There also, you have the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Like Wills, in 2024, Peru will host the APEC Pacific Economic Forum. Peru, in this context, has joined the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity, APEP. This is something that came out of the recent Summit of the Americas. We welcome this initiative and proposal by the United States. Peru supports it and believes that we can be an anchor in the region for just, inclusive economic development and prosperity, which is the ultimate goal of APEP. We believe it is important to ensure diversity, and all of the countries here reflect this diversity. Specifically, we're interested in resilience, trade, the fight against poverty, women's empowerment, and equality, the strengthening of value chains and supply chains, the fight against corruption, climate change, food security, among others. In order to meet its objectives, APEP has to be dynamic partnership. It must be very closely linked to the problems on the ground. Actions will have to lead to solutions. Therefore, it is essential that we have a system of democratic values that will help to ensure free trade that benefits the population as a whole. It will help us to strengthen commercial and trade ties. Peru wants to be sure that this initiative will help us to address some of the historically vulnerable and excluded populations. And this can be done through more dynamic inter-regional trade that helps SMEs. Given Peru's location, among other factors, we believe that we're strategic, and we believe that our SMEs are strategic as well. Of course, I need to make reference to Peru's current political situation after the attempted coup d'etat by the previous president back in December. Dina Boluarte assumed the presidency, as was constitutionally mandated in Peru. We are very well aware of the issues faced by some of the historically vulnerable and marginalized populations that supported the previous president. We are looking to pass a law. We have a bill that's being debated to ensure this. Peru will be addressing some of the pressing issues we have politically here, but there will be elections called, and this will all be done within the framework of the Constitution and in the context of rule of law. A solid democracy will help us to shoulder our responsibilities and face the challenges, and to be full partners in the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity. Peru will support the commitments in each of the focus areas of this initiative in benefit of all the peoples of the region. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have our colleagues from Uruguay, Mr. Bustillo, Minister Arbeleche.
Good afternoon. It's only Mrs. Arbeleche from Uruguay. Mr. Bustillo cannot be present at this moment. So good afternoon, Secretary of State of the United States, Antony Blinken, United States Trade Representative Katherine Tai, and colleagues from all countries present today. Muy buenas tardes para todos. Permítame agradecer.
Good afternoon. Please allow me to express my thanks and acknowledgement as Minister of Economy and Finance of Uruguay for the State Department for having put together this very important event. This is the manifestation of an initiative announced by President Biden during the Summit of the Americas and is fully supported by Uruguay. At the time, President Biden alluded to important lines of action for this partnership. Uruguay completely agrees. Among these, the importance of democracy, sustainable trade, the building of resilient supply chains, mitigation and adaptation to climate change, and the promotion of private investments, as well as increased capitalization of IDB Invest. COVID-19 showed us some of the weaknesses that we have in our health systems and education systems. Added to that, Russia's invasion of Ukraine had an impact on the post-pandemic recovery and on energy prices. The prices of raw materials and food have risen, causing inflationary pressure globally. This new initiative is both open and flexible, and it is a positive rapprochement opportunity for the region and helps us to strengthen ties amongst the member governments in the coming years. This partnership will allow us to open regional channels of dialogue and to constructively build agendas that are based on joint efforts. Coordinated work, cooperation, and investments are essential for achieving a equitable economic growth objectives, and will help us as a region to contribute to the universal targets to the benefit of our peoples. Uruguay is in the perfect situation to become a very stable partner in the region and to contribute very positively to things like renewable energies and high quality value added products, and do so sustainably. Uruguay has successfully moved toward decarbonizing its economy, practically eliminating the use of fossil fuels in the generation of electricity, and we've done so as part of our commitments in the Paris Agreement. We are working toward a national development strategy in green energies, working with the private sector and globally. We are innovating in sustainable financing. I would like to highlight the recent issue of green bonds that seek to conserve nature and promote resilience in the face of climate change. We're working in biotechnology and other sectors in which Uruguay is in a great position to take in foreign investment. I wanted to highlight the importance of the United States as our main service export market and the example of some of the developments we seek to achieve. I wanted to wrap up with 3 brief points. First, all countries are in a different situation as far as integration and our relations with the United States. Hopefully, this initiative will help to level the playing field and bring us all to similar levels of development. That is key for Uruguay. I also wanted to highlight Uruguay's desire to have open and sustainable trade through different trade agreements. We very much look forward to this partnership because we believe it can be the perfect forum to deepen relations both regionally and bilaterally. Lastly, I wanted to commend the launch of this partnership today. I think this is the most important step. We are going to bring to fruition all of our previous efforts. You have the firm commitment and enthusiasm of Uruguay in this effort. Thank you very much.
Madam Minister, thank you very, very much. And gracias a todos y todas. We're really delighted to have everyone together today. Let me just say in conclusion how much we appreciate the insights that we've heard, and especially the partnership that we share in this initiative. With the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity, we're sending a strong message that we intend to respond to the challenges as well as the opportunities of our time alongside our partners. That focus on partnerships is why we created the America's Health Corps, the Cities Forward Initiative, the U.S. Caribbean Partnership to address the climate crisis, and other regional initiatives. It's not just about responding to the challenges, but also about an affirmative vision for the future. That's what's embedded in the America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity. What we do together in our region will have global effects. And I think and hope that it can actually help shape a global race to the top, not to the bottom. So simply put, we look very much forward to working with everyone in the months ahead, including in April at the Cities Summit of the Americas. With that, Katherine, I'll leave it to you to close out.
Thank you so much, Secretary Blinken. Tony, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all my fellow ministers for all of your thoughtful insights today. And as I'm looking around at the screens, it occurs to me that I have had a chance to see almost all of you in person recently, if not in the past couple weeks, in the past couple months, whether in the context of US, Mexico, Canada, APEC, the WTO mini ministerials. And I want to express how truly delighted I am and excited I am to have the opportunity to work with all of you in this grouping on a hemispheric project. I'm confident that together we can build a fair and equitable tomorrow for our citizens and bring lasting change. And I'm grateful to have all of you as partners as we begin this endeavor with the Americas Partnership. When he addressed the United Nations General Assembly, President Biden said that the United States is opening an era of relentless diplomacy to address the challenges that matter most to people's lives, all people's lives. And trade is a critical part of this relentless diplomacy. All of us are here to drive sustainable and inclusive economic growth for our people. We share this goal because we know that our well-being and economic security are inextricably linked. We all know the challenges we face. Many of our economies are still recovering from the COVID pandemic, as many of you have commented, as well as global inflation, which has been exacerbated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which is straining families' budgets. To advance our vision for a human-centric approach to trade, all 12 of our economies must be in this together to deepen our economic cooperation, strengthen our collective resilience, and advance, as many of you noted, democracy and a shared prosperity. We have a lot of work ahead of us, strengthening our supply chains, lifting up our small businesses, creating green jobs, reinvigorating our financial institutions. These are all priorities that we will focus on as we begin to fill in the details. So let's come together and demonstrate that we can use trade as a force for good, and that we can use this partnership as a new model for others in our region to join. Thank you again, and I look forward to working with all of you in the months ahead. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thanks, everyone. Gracias. Merci.
Gracias.
Feliz año.